वासुदेवेन्द्र योगीन्द्रं नत्वा ज्ञानप्रदं गुरुं मुमुक्षूणां हितार्थाय तत्त्वबोधो विधीयते. So we will quickly recap whatever we have studied so far. So far the text, like when we started, we said there are 4 sections of the text. The first section was about the qualifications required for self-knowledge. We have seen that in detail. The second section was the discussion about the microcosm. Again, we have seen that in detail. We started the third section, which is about the macrocosm or the Srishti Vichara, Samashti Vichara, the discussion about the total, how the creation happens. So as we saw in the last class, there are 2 things which are required to have for creation to happen. So one is the intelligent cause, and the second one is called as the material cause. So as we saw here, Brahman, which is the consciousness principle, together with Maya, the inert principle, come together to create. Brahman's role is limited to being the conscious. It provides the consciousness to the Srishti or the creation. Its role is limited. It is like the light. The job of the light is to provide the light for activities to happen within the space. So Brahman is that light. Maya, as we understood, has got 3 attributes: the Sattva, the Rajas, and the Tamas. The Sattva is the Jnana Shakti or the knowledge. Rajas is the Kriya Shakti or the action. And Tamas is the Dravya Shakti, the one which actually pulls down the other 2. So Maya is made up of these 3 attributes: Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. And these 3 attributes, the whole life is a play of these 3 attributes. As we go further, we'll understand. Now, when these 2, again the text talk about 24 basic elements which form the universe. So out of this, in the previous section we had seen 17. The 5 Jnanendriyas, the 5 Karmendriyas, the 5 Pranas, mind and intellect. So these 17 were already discussed in the previous section. Here we will understand 7 more principles together which take care of this creation. Now, we have already seen the first elements that are produced when Maya and Brahman come together. The first one is Akasha, which is space. The second one is Vayu, air. From space comes air. From air comes the fire tattvam, Agni. From the fire tattvam, the Jala tattvam or water comes. And then from the water, the Jala tattvam, comes the Prithvi tattvam or earth. So up to this we had seen in the last class. So now we have five basic elements which are used for constructing the other elements. So these are called Sukshma Bhutas, or the subtle elements. Now these subtle elements on their own cannot function. So we will be seeing a combination of different parts of this which form the other 19 elements. So these five form the basic. So these are called as the Sukshma Bhuta. So the creation happens in 4 stages. The first stage is the construction of the Sukshma Bhuta, the 5 basic elements. The second stage is called as Sukshma Bhautika, or a combination of these will form all the subtle things. So all the things which are subtle are a combination of these 5 elements. So a combination is called Bhautika. A pure element is called Bhuta, and a combination of these is called Bhautika. The third stage is called Sthula Bhuta. The Sthulam is like the body which is visible. Sukshma is something not visible. And then the fourth stage where this Sthula Bhuta becomes Sthula Bhautika, a combination again of the Sthula Bhutas, which becomes visible factors like the body, etc. So these are the 4 stages of creation, starting with Sthula Sukshma Bhuta, Sukshma Bhautika, Sthula Bhuta, Sthula Bhautika. So these are the 4 stages. Now we will just read the text, then we will explain how the things happen. Okay. So we have seen up to the part where earth is born from water. So how starting from the Akasha to the Vayu, from Vayu to Agni, Agni to Jalam, and Jalam to Prithvi. So we have seen this. The next stage, Etesham Panchatattvanam Madhya Akashasya Satvikamsha Shotrendriyam Sambhutam. So we will look at all this in a sequence. I'll just read out the sequence. Vayo Satvikam Shatvagindriyam Sambhutam. Agnem Satvikamsha Chakshundriyam Sambhutam. Jalasya Satvikam Kamsham Rasendriyam Sambhutam. Prithviyam Satvikamsham Ghanendriyam Sambhutam. So here, from each of these elements, first the Pancha Jnanendriyas are created. You know the Jnanendriyas, the 5 senses of knowledge, the sense of touch, smell, taste, sight and sound. So these are the 5 Jnanendriyas. Now, each of these elements, as we know, because basically Maya has got three attributes, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. So each of these five elements also has the same attributes, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. So in Akasha there is Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. In Vayu there is Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. So on. So each of these has got the each of the five elements has got the three attributes. Now, from the Sattva attribute of Akasha, the hearing is evolved from the Sattva aspect. From the Sattva aspect of Akasha, the sense of hearing is evolved. From the Sattva aspect of Vayu, the sense of touch is evolved. From the Sattva aspect of fire, the sense of sight is evolved. From the Sattva aspect of water, the organ of taste is evolved, the sense of taste. And from the Sattva aspect of the Prithvi Tattva, the organ of smell, the sense of smell is evolved. So the five Tattvas, the Sattva aspect takes care of the five Jnanendriyas. So this is how the five Jnanendriyas are formed. So now we have five elements, and a combination of these elements, the five Jnanendriyas are formed. So totally now we have arrived at how 10 elements are born. The next sequence we will just read out. Etesham panchatattvanam samashti satvikam shad mano buddhiya ahankara chittantah karnani sambhutani. Now, the next aspect is what we call as the internal organ, Antahakarana, the internal instrument. So far earlier we have seen the mind and the intellect form the internal instrument. Now here two more aspects are added to the internal instrument. So now we have the mind, the intellect, ahankara, which is the ego, and the fourth one is the buddhi, which is memory. So now we have four. The fourth one is Chittam. Manas, Buddhi, Ahankara and Chitta. Chitta is the memory. Mind, intellect, ego and memory. So the inner instrument consists of these four. Actually they are one and the same. For identifying the roles, they are divided into four parts. For example, the nature of the mind is to doubt. So the mind, already we have seen, mind is always the doubting part. Should I take this? Should I do this? Should I do that? So mind is always doubting. Buddhi is Nishchayatmika. The intellect takes the decision. Should I eat this or should I eat that? Okay. The intellect says, if you have this, you are going to have some issues. So have that, because already you had some experience by taking a particular food. You had a bad experience. So the intellect remembers that and says, okay, between these two, the mind, both are looking very tempting. The mind is deciding whether you should take this or that. But the buddhi says, okay, last time you had a problem, so better take this. So the one which takes the decision is called as the buddhi. Now two more are added in this, in the same set. You have the ego, ahankara, the one which gives you the factor I am the doer, I am the one who is doing all this. So our whole existence is driven by this ahankara, I. And the fourth one is the memory. It helps you to recollect what happened last year, what happened 10 years back, or what happened when we were in college. All those things are there in the memory part. So now the four instruments, inner instruments, have to be constructed. Now here you cannot have one particular attribute alone for these instruments, because these instruments are the one who have to take a decision based on the input they get through the 5 jnanendriyas. So they need to have all the 3 aspects. So a combination of the sattva guna of all the 5 elements together, it's a combination of the entire sattva aspect of the 3 gunas which form the 4 inner instruments. So the inner instrument is made up of the sattva guna of all the 5 elements, because the faculty of memory, the faculty of whichever, like the mind, everything, it has to have, it gets input from all. So it needs to have the sattva guna of all the elements. So now the formation of these 4 inner instruments is through the sattva aspect of all the 5 elements. So now we have 5 elements. From that, 5 jnanendriyas or the 5 knowledge senses happen. Then the 4 inner instruments. So totally now we have 5 plus 5 plus 4, 14 elements. Okay. Now the author talks about the presiding deities of these 4 inner instruments: the mind, the intellect, the ego, and the memory. Now each of this has a presiding deity. Now let us see what are the presiding deities. Again, the role is, we will just read out, Nishchayatmika Buddhihi. The nature of the intellect is decision making. Okay, before that, Sankalpa Vikalpatmakam Manaha. The nature of the mind is to doubt. Nishchayatmika Buddhihi. The nature of the intellect is decision making. Ahankara Ahankaratha Antakritaha. It is the sense of doership is the role of ahankara, ego. I am the doer. Chintan Kartri Chittam. Chitta is the process of recalling whatever happened, or the memory. So these are the four roles of these four inner instruments. Now let us look at the presiding deities of all these four inner instruments. Manaso Devata Chandrama, Buddhir Brahma, Ahankarasya Rudraha, Chittasya Vasudevaha. So the presiding deity of the mind is the moon. We are aware of this because normally people with mental problems, it is directly connected to the moon. So that is why in English also we use the word lunatic. It is the lunar, connected to the lunar cycle. So people with mental problems, during the waxing and the waning moon, how their mind works. So for any problems related to the mind, the one who prays to the moon will get relief. So the presiding deity of the mind is the moon. Buddhir Brahma. The intellect is presided by the deity called Brahma. Now Brahma stands for knowledge and his wife is Saraswati. So the faculty of Buddhi is governed by Brahma. Ego, Ahankarasya Rudraha. The ego is presided by Rudra. Rudra is the destroyer.
Who?
Rudra.
Rudra.
Rudra is the destroyer, as you know. Rudra stands for destruction. Destruction of the ego. Finally, unless we destroy the ego, we cannot evolve. So Rudra is the presiding deity for ego. Chittasya Vasudevaha. For the memory, Vasudeva is the presiding deity, Vishnu. So each of these four inner instruments have a presiding deity, and anyone who has any problems with any of these four faculties, they can pray to the corresponding deity, which will help them to tide over that particular problem. Now moving ahead, the next we have to see how the karmendriyas are formed, the organs of action. So next is etesham panchatattvanam madhya akashasya rajasham shadvagindriyam sambhutam vayo rajasam shatpanindriyam sambhutam vahne rajasam shatpadendriyam sambhutam jalasya rajasam sadgunendriyam sambhutam prithviyam rajasham shudapasthendriyam sambhutam etesham samashti rajasam shat pancha prana sambhutaha. So now the next, already we have seen how the five jnanendriyas are born, starting with the five basic elements, the five jnanendriyas and the four internal instruments. So totally we have seen 14. So what is left is the pancha karmendriya and the pancha pranas. Now the sattva portion was used for these aspects. The first 14, what we have seen, the sattva part of each, or the sattva attribute, so sattva guna was used to form both the jnanendriyas and the four internal instruments. Now, from the rajas part of the first element, Akasha, is born the organ of speech. So the organ of speech is formed by the rajas part of the Akasha element. Okay. Similarly, from the rajas aspect of the Vayu element, the air, the hands are born. The hands. From the rajas part of fire, the legs are born. Okay. From the rajas aspect of water, the organs of evacuation, the anus is born. And the rajas aspect of the earth, the genital organs are born, the organs of reproduction. Because all these are action oriented, so the rajas element is used to construct these 5 action organs of action. So from rajas tattva of space, speech. From the rajas tattva of air, hands. From the rajas tattva of fire, legs. From the rajas tattva of water, the organ of evacuation. From the rajas tattva of earth, the reproductive organs or the genital organs are born. So now we have 19. So already we have seen 14 elements. So now these 5 organs of action together becomes 19. Now what is left is the Pancha Prana. How are the Pancha Pranas born? Etesham samashti raja sam shat pancha prana sambhutaha. From the rajas aspect of all these elements put together, the 5 pranas are born. So all the elements, the rajas aspect is there in the 5 pranas, because the 5 pranas are one who drive the pancha karmendriyas, because the energy comes from the prana. So the energy for these organs of action to happen comes from the pranas. So the pranas have to have the rajas aspect of all the 5 elements. So these now put together form the 24 elements. So the 5 basic elements are the Sukshma Bhuta, through which the 5 Sukshma Bhautika are born. All the Sukshma Bhautika, not just the 5, the 19 Sukshma Bhautika, all the subtle elements are born through the 5 subtle, the basic 5 subtle elements are used to construct all the subtle things, including the organs of action, the organs of the pranas, the inner instruments, and the organs of knowledge. So this is how the 24 elements are constructed. Now, what is left is the physical body, and among the elements we have what is called as the tamas. Tamas aspect is still not utilized. So this tamas aspect is what is used to construct the physical body, and the tamas aspect, how this is grossified, because the body is gross, you can see the body. All the other things what we have discussed so far are all not visible to the eyes. What is visible to the eyes is the physical body. Now, this physical body cannot be directly made with the subtle elements. Then the body will not be visible at all. So, for the body to be visible, to become sthula, it has to go through a process called grossification. Now, the tamas aspect goes into the construction. The tamas aspect of all the 5 elements is going to be used for construction of a body, but not directly, through a process called grossification. How this grossification takes place is, each element, suppose you take the Akasha element. The Akasha element, so the main element, the tamas aspect. So the first thing is, in the tamas aspect, the tamas aspect of Akasha element is taken. Now only half of Akasha, in that element, only half of the Akasha element will be there. The rest half will constitute the other 4 elements. So the tamas aspect of Akasha is combined with 1/8 of air, 1/8 of fire, 1/8 of water, and 1/8 of Prithvi, earth. So the grossification process is, the tamas aspect of each of the elements is taken, half of it is retained. You take Akasha, you take the tamas aspect of Akasha, half of it is retained as it is. The rest of the half is equally divided between the other 4 elements. It's a little probably complicated, but I'll send you a chart later on which will explain these things. You look at the chart, it will become easier, but I'm just explaining. So the half of the one element is mixed with, so it's like an alloy. When you make an alloy, you take a, suppose iron alloy, you have the major part will be iron, then you add nickel, cobalt, and depending on what kind of alloy you need for what purpose, you add different elements, copper or nickel or cobalt or whatever we need to make an alloy. Similarly, here the alloy is made with these 5 elements by taking one element, half of one element, and then the other half, the other 4 elements. So each one will be 1/8. So if you take Akasha element, it means it has got half of Akasha, 1/8 of Vayu, 1/8 of Agni, 1/8 of Jalam, and 1/8 of Prithvi. Like that, each of these elements. So when you take first is Akasha, then you come to Vayu. So when you say Vayu element, it means half is Vayu, the rest half is the other four. So when you take Agni, half is Agni, the rest half is other four elements. Same thing with Jalam and same thing with Prithvi. So this is called as Panchikaranam. Through the process of Panchikaranam, the Sthula Bhautikas are created, which go into the construction of the physical body. So the physical body is made up of the tamas elements of all the basic elements, where each of the basic elements is not retained as it is. Each of it has got only half of the main element, and the rest of the half equally divided between the other four elements. So that is how, through the process of grossification, these four, through the process of grossification, the physical body is constructed. So this is, the process is called Panchikaranam. So now we have understood how the whole process of constructing the body and the other instruments happens. The 24 elements which are required to construct the entire being, so to say. And finally, through the process of grossification, the physical body is constructed. So this further, so this will explain the connection between the macrocosm and the microcosm, because basically everything is made up of the same. So that is what the idea of explaining all this is finally to conclude that there is no difference between the macrocosm and the microcosm, which we will understand. In the next class we will just again expand that and we will understand more. Okay.